I don't get to keep my tips? Fine, but you will not get any either. So a long time ago I, 24F, worked as a waitress in the only bar in my town. I worked there between the ages of 16 and 17. Because I was underage and it was the only job that I could do. Where I live you have to be 18 to handle a cash register. Now I think this job was very much not legal. I worked at that bar for €7 per hour. Which was pretty bad already. But I also was not allowed to keep my tip money. I was literally stuck. Because this was the only job that I could do at my age in my town and I needed the money badly. I also worked from like 8 p.m. up to 3 a.m. in the morning. In my country if you were underage you were only allowed to work until 10 p.m. There were times that I even worked from 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. It was a mess. So because I was underage I was not allowed to handle any money. Every time a customer wanted to pay I had to get one of the older girls. One day there was a very nice couple and they called me to their table. They told me that I was the nicest waitress they ever had. Not to brag. And asked me if I was allowed to keep my tips. In my country we are paid hourly. I shook my head. So they told me to turn around and not look and not to tell anyone about the conversation. Kind of weird. But okay. At the end of the shift we all had to sit around a table and my boss would count all the money in front of us to check how much tip money we made. There wasn't any. Everyone that night had paid to the cent. There were no tips and he was furious. I loved it. He asked if I took the money and I just smirked, telling him I was not allowed to handle money. When I arrived home and checked my back pocket I found €30 of tips from the nice couple. Best day at work ever. For a summer after high school, I worked in the automotive shop at a Walmart. Walmart has about 383 rules they heavily enforce. And in the automotive department this number is much higher since we are handling other people's vehicles. We were offered tips often. And we kindly refused 9 times out of 10. But sometimes the customer insists in funny ways. On one occasion, a convoy of 3 matching, all-black Yukon Denali's came in. A whole family of folks traveling together for some event they were trying to get to. These folks had money. And you could tell. Gold jewelry, fancy watches, the whole 9 yards. We were 10 minutes from close. And they wanted 3 sets of brand new tires put on all 3 vehicles. I think we just were excited for the challenge. Because the 3 of us that were working agreed. And one of us did end of shift shop cleanup. Myself and the other guy got to work. We busted out 12 tires. Mounted, balanced, installed in 22 minutes. When we rung them up, I handed the man his keys in the parking lot. After he swiped his credit card inside for $3,000 plus. And he asked if we were allowed tips. I smiled and told him that we were not. But we appreciate the thought. He then dropped 3 $100 bills on the ground. And said, "Hey man, you dropped your money." I chuckled and said, "Sir, that's really not necessary." And he just turned and started getting in his vehicle. "Man, you better pick up that paper floating around the parking lot. I don't know whose it is but it's not mine." As he smiled and drove away. I've had a couple jobs where I was told not to accept tips. I always took them anyways. If I've done such a good job that someone wants to pay me extra, I'm taking it. Not criticizing you at all, op. But it's ridiculous that an employer won't allow you to handle cash because you're under 18 but is happy to let you work 12 hours till 5 in the morning. In 1998 I attended a Molson's Christmas party in Calgary at the Old Brewery. It was an open bar with free food for all the licensees aka bar owners. They had hired a company to facilitate the liquor and food service. Keep in mind that sometimes people even in the industry can be complacent when it comes to free food and drink. When I got to the front of the line and received my drink, I asked the server where their tip jar was. I was informed that they were not allowed to accept tips. I asked for the manager and asked him to clarify, and he said that is correct, they are not allowed to accept tips. I asked him for an empty glass and he provided me one. The lineups were about 6 deep with 4 bartenders. I pulled a $5 bill out of my pocket and turned to everyone and loudly said, "Can you believe it all? Of us hospitality industry people here having free food and drink, and we're not allowed to tip the servers?" I said, "That's hardly in the spirit of Christmas now, isn't it? And here's my $5 and I'm leaving the glass on the counter." Well, that jolted a bunch of people in line to life, including the service manager, who suddenly backtracked with 20 or 30 industry professionals staring at him. Let's just put it this way, the service staff was all smiles the rest of the way. I reckon they had a nicer Christmas. Wait, we're supposed to put tips in the back pockets of waitresses? I'm not sure I'm ready for that kind of commerce. Not in your country, so I can't say with absolute certainty, but fairly certain everything that they were doing to you was illegal. I'm a little surprised no one reported this guy for the scuzzy behavior. But to each their own, I guess. You should report the company. What they did was illegal, unethical, and abusive. So only one table tipped anyone in the restaurant that entire evening?
What are you doing, Uncle Customer?
I worked at a grocery store and I wasn't allowed to take tips. I still did it anyway, lol. Me and someone else fought over a lady who loved me and the other dude. Don't ask for tips. Don't expect tips. When it happens, it happens. Grocery store wise. Edit. I forgot to say this. I was having a bad morning one day 'cause a manager kinda yelled at me. And I was getting carts. Some truck rolled down their window and tipped me $20. It was next to a cart corral. And then the person was like, "Wait. The passenger wants to give you $20 too." So $40 in one day made my day. LMAO, tears of joy, tears of joy, tears of joy, tears of joy, tears of joy. This is one of the best ones I've heard. Your boss sounds like the type of person we have labor laws because of, though. I'm sorry you got taken advantage of like that. I feel your pain. But DAAAMN, I bet that was the best $30 ever. It's like they got revenge for you, which is epic on its own. I worked at a bar where tips were shared between everyone on shift that night. So waitresses, dishwashers, delivery guys, etc. The owners weren't in on the cut, which was very fair in my eyes. But if I was on shift with a waitress who didn't do anything and took smoke breaks every hour, whilst I was sweating my ass off, you bet that I put some of those tips in my pocket. Sorry for the dishwasher boy. Sometimes the customers even wanted to give it only to me because my colleague had been a bitch to them. Not sorry. How does someone not notice something being slipped into their back pocket? That also seems kinda invasive. And somehow every single customer knew not to tip? Even before and after the couple left? I tell people not to tip me as I will have share with people who have done none of the work. They make it work for me. Old job I had. If we got a tip, we couldn't accept it. We had to give it back or else we would be fired. No warnings. No write-ups. This rule had 2 reasons for it. 1. The company was sued once because a customer said an employee stole money from them. 2. Our pay was performance-based and tips looked very bad for the company. If you got sleeping on the job, your monthly pay was $1 an hour. My best month was $15 an hour. I worked a front of house gig and had to always split my tips with the kitchen staff. We all were paid well above standard restaurant wage, and they made much more than I did due to seniority. These tips often included cash I made from the bar, where I washed my own glassware and bussed completely solo. Some customers knew that and would tip me, then throw some cash in the shared jar. It helped more than they knew. €7 per h bad? If I had to guess, Northern European country? I worked at a movie theater and was told not to take tips, and someone came in and tipped my co-worker and myself, and when we tried to turn it away, they asked how much we made. We said $7.25. Then he told us that we can't afford to not take the tip and left us with the money. Literally defrauding a child. Your ex-boss is a piece of work. Not at all familiar with the employment laws in Germany, but that should be considered wage theft. We went on our first real vacation to Jamaica. It was an all-inclusive resort that I would highly recommend to anyone that cares to ask. And it had a no-tip policy. They also used hospitality student interns in their dining rooms for experience and to scope out potential hires. Those kids worked hard to prove themselves, as getting into some of the better resorts was a highly sought-after job. I would fold a $500 J-bill and hold it to the bottom side of a saucer, and hand it to the server when they came by to buss the table. They would give a slight nod, and you would never have to wait for service after that. Honestly, I'm sure the managers saw everything, but they never let on.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Eracast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.